Hey, it's TDA, and today we're playing some more Mindustry because honestly, after building this pretty awesome looking factory last time around with boosted mining drills and all kinds of awesome stuff going on, I'm looking really much forward to playing another level. And it looks like the next level is going to be Caldera. So let's see, the resources detected in this sector are scattered across several islands. Research and deploy drone-based transportation. Finally, I get to use some drones. So let's see where that takes us. Into a nice little island by the looks of it. So yeah, let's do some more scouting and see what we have to work with. Well, unlike last time, this time around, this told me absolutely nothing. Well, other than the fact that I am on an island, but this island seems to be going nowhere. I have found no resources anywhere in the range, so I'm guessing I'm going to have to build some of these ships in order to fly over all this area and conquer some more resources there. It is worth noting, however, that there are quite a few new types of things I can actually unlock in the technology tree. So, for example, I have the large plasma bore over here, which is apparently an upgraded version of the base one we've been using so far. And this is going to be able to mine tungsten and thorium. So we might as well unlock that. Then we have the slag heater here, which is another way to generate some heat, but it's very much welcome, and it does so by apparently using slag, so that's going to be useful. And then we have the atmospheric concentrator, and I think this will be vital for our bots, because this is going to allow us to produce nitrogen. And I actually tried to build it in the last level near the end, but it turns out that in order to use these cargo loaders and the drones that they function with, you need nitrogen to build them. So yeah, this is going to allow me to do exactly that. Then we have the wall over here that I didn't unlock before. And I think that's about it. So yeah, let's get to it. So let's see what we have to work with. We have some beryllium production over here, which is actually boosted, so that's really nice. That's the first time. There's an electrolyzer over here, which is getting a little bit of water from this turbine condenser. And then we also have an oxidation chamber, actually. So we are already producing some oxide. So that's pretty nice. We have a lot of the bases covered. It's actually the first time that the game starts me out with a ship fabricator as well. The first unit production, at least, the game has ever started me out with. So that's interesting. And then we have some graphite production over here. The only thing we don't actually have is tungsten. We do have some nodes over here. So that's probably the first thing I want to go and grab. Okay, there we go. So we now have some basic tungsten production. I also tapped into all of the power nodes that I had over here just because I could. It's very cheap to do so. And I hooked it all up to the tungsten impact drill because, well, it needs a lot of water, and I actually need 3 of these turbines to give enough water to have it completely function. So we're going to redo this because honestly this looks really ugly, but for now this is what we need to do to keep things going. There is a tiny little bit of graphite under here that I wasn't mining yet, so I might as well mine that and boost it, so it's actually a pretty decent amount of production added to the mix. And then I'm just gonna have to sit around and wait a little bit for the tungsten production and or the ship fabricator to do its work, because yeah, I need tungsten for pretty much everything else. Oh, which reminds me, I do have a ship now, so let's do some exploring. Well then, turns out there was a lot of exploring to do, because as you can see, this map is pretty large. There is an island over here that has a lot of resources. There's another island over here, another island over here, and then another island over here. All of them have quite a lot of resources. I have been exploring, and in the meanwhile, I'm actually under attack, so I'll have to go and deal with that. But it seems like the enemy is over here, and this seems to be completely walled off. So this island should be safe to take first, I believe. Well, aside from flying units, but at least everything else can't reach me. There is an opening here, which is how I discovered that the enemy was there. I don't think this can actually be trespassed by any units other than flying units. So all in all, it seems like that we're going to take this island first, and then we're going to work our way across these islands towards the enemy, get more and more resources, more and more, well, I would say units, but there's a limit to how many units I can build. So at least we're going to get more and more resources, and then we're going to have to take out the enemy while doing that. Before I get to the second island though, I want to make sure I optimize my first one. So like I've been boosting the little bore over here, I also boosted the ones over here. So I now have a lot more graphite production. And I do have a little bit of arcosite over here, so I might as well build myself a power facility. There we go, a lot of additional power production along with some electrolyzers. Now what am I going to do with all of this power? I'm not entirely sure yet, because honestly I need a lot more resources, and now it's time to turn to the second island to get those resources. So here's the island I was talking about. So as you can see, there's beryllium here. There's a couple of vents, but not any arcosite, so we can't build any additional power. I can also not stretch the power over this chasm. It's too wide, even with the improved towers. So I'm just gonna have to do everything I want to do here with just the 3 vents of worth of power. Now there is actually tungsten here in the walls, as you can see. So this is where we can fairly effectively mine that, because remember, a large plasma bore like this one uses 48 power, and a impact drill uses 160 power. So it's a lot more efficient to mine things from the wall than it is to mine them from the earth like this. Now, let me think about setting this up. Okay, so this is a little annoying. Apparently the enemy can come through here. I'm not entirely sure how they did that, but yeah. I was just trying to defend and repair my base over here, and look at that. They're actually just going all the way around to clear this out. So this is going to be like a little bit whack-a-mole over here to make sure I clear out all these enemies while I'm also trying to build up my base. And of course I can put up some turrets, but in order to put up turrets I need ammunition, which I currently don't really have. Well, maybe a couple of turrets will help out with that. I do have a little bit of beryllium here in the wall, so it should be fairly easy to mine. I keep getting attacked all over the place, which is really annoying, especially since some of my buildings are extremely easy to destroy. But yeah, let's try to keep rebuilding and progress as we go. Once we have a little bit of a foothold, I think we should be just fine, because I'm not getting attacked by anything particularly dangerous. It's just that it's really annoying to defend. Well, what I thought would happen is actually happening, so the enemy just runs straight past my defenses right into the back of my base. It does get shot at, so it's very easy to kill afterwards, but it's yeah, still quite annoying. Anyway, I have my large plasma bore up and running. You can see that it's running because it has nowhere to deliver its resources right now, but it is mining tungsten. And the electrolyzer is supplying the hydrogen to this thing. Now I'm going to have to build some drones in order to get this back to my main base. In order to get my stuff from A to B, I'm going to need that unit cargo loader. This is extremely expensive to build compared to the other resources that I need for the other buildings. It's not going to consume too much power though, so once it's up and it should be running. But we also need some nitrogen in order for this to actually function. Now, this is the cargo loader. There's actually an unloader as well, this one over here. This is pretty cheap to build. It's just some silicon and tungsten, and it doesn't even require power. So once you have the loader up and running, pretty much delivering it to wherever it needs to go is pretty straightforward. So here's what I'm thinking. I have some slag over here, and I have a slag heater now that I can use to produce heat. Then I can use that heat to put a atmospheric concentrator in front of that is going to then provide me with the nitrogen that I can then channel into one of these, well, I should say one of these unit cargo loaders in order to get my tungsten to my other island. Let's see if I can make that work. I don't have a lot of power to work with on this island, so I definitely need to keep things small. Okay, so this is all set up. I'm not entirely sure if it's doing anything yet. It doesn't look like it. It also seems to complain that it's not getting any nitrogen, which is probably because I built a belt over here rather than a pipeline. Let's do it like that. Does that work? Yep, nitrogen is now coming in. And look at that. It's actually, well, it's doing something. I guess it's constructing drones? Well, let's make sure it has somewhere to deliver that as well. Okay, so I built an unload point over here, and now if I set this to tungsten, does that mean I will have little drone? Oh, look at that! Look at that! Is that my drone? Oh, yes. Oh, I am going to have a lot of fun with this. Oh, these things are really fast as well, by the way. But first things first, let's optimize this island as well. So I doubled up on the slag heaters and the atmospheric concentrators to make sure I have all the nitrogen I need to not only fuel this cargo loader, although I'm not entirely sure if it just needs the nitrogen to build the little drones, or if it also does something else with that. It doesn't seem to be using more than just one. So I think it can actually make up to 20 connections. Is that how that works? Well, we're going to find out one way or another. But for now, I boosted my plasma bores as well. So you can see these are now producing 4.5 tungsten per second each. So that's 9 per second. Just to give you a comparison how much that actually is. These impact drills were producing 0.75. So yeah, we have all the tungsten we're going to need for a very long time. Which is nice and all, but if I want to expand further in order to get some more of these cargo depots going, I am going to need slag. And in order to produce slag, I need surge crucibles. So I turned this abomination of a factory island, and I pretty much gave up on keeping this clean because A, I don't have the space, and B, the production is so fragmented that it's pretty much impossible to do. But anyway, I built 2 of these surge crucibles. One is hooked up to my oxidation chamber. I just built a second one just because I wanted some more oxide production as well, and another one with a slag heater attached to it rather than the oxidation chambers to make sure the heat is coming in, and I'm leaching off my silicon production as well. Now, I currently don't need a lot of silicon, but I am only producing it in a single arc, so I'm definitely going to have to boost some more of my base production on the third island. And in order to finally make my life a little bit easier, I built an F-Flick tower here on the corner of this island that should hopefully be able to pick off all the enemy units that come in through here and have been harassing my bases all over the place. It's extremely annoying to defend against, honestly. So hopefully I can now just use all my units and bring them down to the third island and protect that island with these units while my F-Flick takes care of the defense all around. Now let's see if this works. Yep, seems to be working like intended. Barely, but yeah, it's working. I also built a couple of additional beaches over here, but that's just kind of like backup firepower in case I need it. And hopefully when I build my third base over here on this island, that should run most of the enemy fire. As a backup, I'm actually going to put all my units in this particular spot on the top over here, because I think that's actually where all the enemy units have to come through. So maybe these units can actually pick them off, and that should give me another kind of like a bottleneck that I can just hunt the enemies down and build leisurely on this island, and then hopefully end the level after that. So step 1, I actually have some arcosite on this island, so let's set up some power, and I think I have plenty of power now, 3.7k actually. Most of that is just coming from turbines, but these 4 chemical combustion chambers are definitely pulling their weight as well. And then step 2, I'm turning this entire island into a silicon facility. So as you can see, I am now drilling with the large plasma bores, just because I can. I'm drilling way more than I actually need, so this is why I also have the unit cargo loader over here, which is going to pick up some of this supply and hopefully drop it off at my main island. As you can see, there's way more stuff going in here, so there's definitely a bottleneck when it comes to how much a single unit cargo loader can handle. So, you know, I might want to multiply this. Maybe something more like this. So now I actually have one dedicated unit cargo loader to offload some of the graphite that I'm producing, considering how much I'm producing. I should probably be producing a little bit more, actually, if I actually power up my plasma bores. That helps. There we go. And I am also producing a major amount of silicon now. So all of this is probably, again, over-designing, but I felt like doing something nice and organized and at least one of my islands. Anyway, so that means that now I have pretty much all the resources I will ever need for, well, this level and all the levels after that. But I am going to have to produce some air units, I think, to take on the enemy base. Before I get into that though, there's one last thing I do want to point out, and that is how this game is now coming together very nicely. We're using some water production to make the electrolyzer produce ozone and hydrogen. The ozone is going to go into our power production, while the hydrogen is being used to pump some slag for heat, which is then turned into nitrogen. It's also being used in turn to produce some of that arcosite that is again going into our power production, but the hydrogen is also being used for our drilling operation over here. And I could be drilling anything I want pretty much over here. So I could make tungsten, I could make graphite like I'm doing now. All in all, it's really intricate and things are really linking up very nicely together. You actually do have quite a few options in how you want to produce your different items. The nice thing about this setup is that I can now very easily make any combination of items go into a certain direction and then build those, for example, units like I'm doing over here at pretty much any point in my base without resorting to an entire mess of spaghetti. I now have an unload point for the silicon, for the graphite, and for tungsten, and I just have a pipeline with some hydrogen flowing into this one. And that is pretty much all I need in order to start producing some air units, assuming I actually power my building. The interesting thing is also that even though I have multiple unload points, let's look at this one for example, it just arrived with some silicon, this thing is full, and now it's actually moving on to the second offload point that it can drop off that silicon to. So that means that it's either alternating, I believe, between the different unload points, or it's actually passing through to the next one whenever the first one is full. Maybe it will do the reverse thing that we just saw as well. No, that one actually went back. Well, either way, it's pretty smart in how it distributes between the different offload points. Of course, if you have like a dozen different locations where things can go to, it's probably going to get a bit messy. But all in all, it's actually behaving a lot more intelligently than I was expecting. Which actually makes it a lot easier now to replicate certain setups, like for example my ship production over here. I am really liking this development, even though it's a little bit late game-ish, at least it feels like it for now, with all the slack that is required in order to set this up, but all in all, once it's going and it's lovely. And expanding my landing strip a little bit further, I am really liking how this is turning out. At least there's one part finally at the end of this episode that is actually somewhat organized. And I'm really liking how these cargo drones are flying up and down, distributing the items between all the different drop-off points. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun moving forward. Anyway, enough talking about these things. Let's actually use them and try and harass the enemy a little bit. Let's see if these flying units can take out a tower or two. Actually, it feels like this might be a little bit more work than I was initially expecting, but I can take out some of these nodes on the sides. Potentially even just fly. Can I just fly into the middle of the base like they've been doing to me? Well, sort of. I mean, there's definitely some safe spots over here where I am sort of out of reach of stuff. And I can do a lot of damage in here. And hopefully maybe I should just prioritize things like power production and stuff like that. Take that out and then come back after that. I'm not entirely sure if the enemy is going to rebuild in this level. I don't see any drones flying around and I don't see any signs of that base being rebuilt. Oh, never mind, there it is. Okay, yeah, so I'll actually have to take a little bit more care in how I approach this. And yeah, now I took it out, it seems like all these little plasma bores and stuff like that all turned off. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that these turrets won't be shooting back at me, because they don't use power, at least most of them don't. I think we'll find that, yeah, as I move close to the turrets. But it does mean that once they're out of ammo, they should not be getting refueled. So that should mean that as long as I just take it carefully and take the turrets on one at a time, we should be able to kind of attrition our way through this, so to speak. Well, I was going to show you how I destroyed the core, but then I misclicked my recording button and the thing blew up before I got a chance to do it correctly. Anyway, yeah, I didn't have to go and destroy every single turret on the map because the core that I needed to destroy was right in front. So I just took out a couple of turrets. Actually, I took out the supply lines first, just flew around a little bit to draw some fire, and then just took down the core. And that is it for this level. So we have a ridiculous amount of resources actually still left in this level. There's several islands that I barely even touched, but then again, we don't really need that. So if you're still here, you're awesome, and I do hope to catch you in the next one.